Started recording.
We are live now. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As-salatu salamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Amma ba'd. Sheikh, how are we doing today? Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah, doing well. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I dare say these last few days of Ramadan are it's getting a bit tougher. It is getting a bit tougher. The kind of the initial start, the sort of reserves that you have in your body, they've kind of burnt out now, and at this point, it really is down to a lot of willpower on my side. But alhamdulillah, it's good, and I'd never be one of those people that asks for more of a test. But if I'm faced with more of a hardship than I'm used to, then alhamdulillah, I'm grateful.
Yeah, yeah.
How's your fasting been so far?
Good, alhamdulillah. It's going well.
Alhamdulillah. That's good. That's good, mashallah. Sheikh, so the topic today, we had a really brief discussion beforehand. The topic today was around the importance of spirituality. And I think just to kind of preface what I mean by the importance of spirituality, or trying to understand, what opinions are out there when it comes to the importance of spirituality, is not just in essence the kind of the typical core spirituality that people talk about as an awareness of God, acting as if Allah is witnessing you in all occasions, but really more so in the internalization way of ridding yourself of the more base like personality that we all have as people, right? The
Hmm.
selfishness, the that sort of like petty character that maybe some of us have, the childish nature that arises in everyone when faced either through stressful situations, these kind of things. How important is it to try and tackle this within the self?
Very important. And the thing is to control yourself when you realize you're acting out in a certain way, right? And then to analyze yourself afterwards. So the character is tested in those kind of moments where you're saying people will act in a childlike manner, but a developed personality does not do so in that kind of a situation. So one of the best ways is to prepare beforehand, even play out in your mind how you would act if someone's bothering you, for example, things to do and to work on remaining calm. And then even if you get angry, because anger is not, there's not some blanket blame on anger either. There are times you need to be angry to always stay within the proper bounds. And that comes with learning and knowing what good character is, because good character is not being a passive, meek person.
Hmm.
It's being strong, and in some occasions you're deferential, and in other occasions you need to take a stance.
No. Yeah, this is interesting. It says anger is not by default
No,
a the how do I say this? By default, it's not the wrong position, because there are some occasions when
correct.
anger
Yeah,
is righteous, right? It's the correct place to have.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And so
And
it's
then if
actually more so
somebody
the
is
application.
angered, even by things, let's take good and bad out of it, just in the neutral stuff, right? For example, someone's more irritable because he didn't sleep properly at night, or is more hungry, right? So there's no real external cause by someone else. Then he should just understand that he's more irritable today, and to kind of be more on guard and understand that he can transgress easier upon somebody else.
Hmm.
So that's away from the good anger, bad anger. It's a neutral anger, right?
Yes,
And you
yeah,
just
yeah.
and you just have to control yourself even then, and not let it lead to anything that could be wrong, because you're accountable for the things you say and the things you do. So, and being annoyed today or not getting enough sleep is not an excuse for that.
Yes, that it's very interesting that you say this. I think oftentimes people get reason and excuse conflated. There's
Mhm.
always a reason for something, or generically, there's a reason for the majority of our actions. Whether that means that it's excusable is a different conversation, right?
Right.
And so the same application goes, like you said, look, there's a reason you're irritable, you're lacking sleep, you're hungry, whatever it be.
Hmm.
This doesn't justify, let's say, for example, speaking ill to your parents or speaking ill to your
Hmm.
loved ones because you're irritable. Yeah, this is
Right.
interesting. So the question is, when it comes to mastering your emotions, when it comes to not letting yourself get carried away, are there certain instances where there is prophetic guidance or advice on how to approach this if someone is, for example, overwhelmed whilst they're in defense of the Prophet ﷺ, while someone's giving da'wah, these kind of different situations? Is the guidance through the hadith or through any of the literature that gives us a method in how to apply ourselves in this
So
setting?
it's a little like we spoke about da'wah in the last conversation,
Mhm.
that it's not going to be, you know, if A then B. You
Yes,
know,
yeah, yeah.
Islam really requires learning and then to understand the gambit of possible responses in a scenario. And at the end of the day, this ilmul hal here would be used to mean, because it can mean different things, like to know what to do in your situation, right? And this is why you have a variety amongst the Sahaba as well, that different Ashab Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would respond in different ways based on what they deemed fit in a certain time. And then in the permissible responses, you have like a range of things you can do, things you can say, right? And different people may respond differently, but what matters, and to your question about learning what to do or how to do so, that requires learning. So you know, one, that it's in line with the Sharia, that, and two, you're not being driven by your hawa, by your desires, you know, because we can call it righteous indignation and do a lot of bad things and transgress, or we can say we're being humble and be cowards and not do anything when we're required to speak. So you have to have knowledge. Then you have to know that it's not your desire overpowering you that's making a justification come just because, you know, you're being weak and timid or you're being overly aggressive. And then third is that you have to have the wisdom to see that you're applying it correctly and doing what's best for your situation. And here, what's best for you may differ what's best for somebody else.
No. You know, you've highlighted something, and I think it might be the second or third time you mentioned it to me, and it seems to be I keep falling for this kind of like mistake or this mischaracterization. There is a rigid response to every action. There's a typical method or a way. Like, yes, there is the recommended way, or, you know, like you said, situationally, some things are going to be more recommended than others, depending on the person and the environment. But I keep falling prey to this, and I don't know why it is. If this situation is this, then the response equals this. It's not as clear cut as that.
I'm not saying this is why for you, but
Yeah.
something we see often is like, you know, the prophetic way of doing the prophetic way, like this is on social media, these are marketing programs,
No.
the Islamic worldview on this, the Islamic worldview of that, the Islamic response to this, as if it's just a one response or a list of responses. But, you know, really, Islam, like to speak on behalf of the religion or to be somebody who's illuminated by knowledge, you have to have some deep learning. You should be around, you know, mashayikh who are like actual mashayikh, like have their company, people who are older, you know, and you benefit from their wisdom as well as their knowledge. And then that's imparted onto you, hopefully. And then you realize you can make mistakes and you will make mistakes, and try to have things peer reviewed. But that's if you're making an argument. But in a situation, you may not be able to do all that, but you hope to have the tools to where you can make a good decision. Or if you don't, then you have the humility to realize you made a mistake and apologize and try to rectify.
This is very interesting. The beginning part you mentioned is, I think, is very important. You see something that will be like the Islamic answer to this, right? This problem or this approach. You could
It's all
get,
a scam.
if you get one question, you could have two people answer it in very different ways. Both of them could be characterized as the Islamic answer. As long as they follow the core tenets and the approach that Islam advocates for, then I see this. There's not one you know, this is the definitive thing that Islam says on this. There is an ability to kind of move within different levels of either, like you said, passiveness of more forward sort of nature, dependent on the on whatever they're facing.
Yeah, and this is really big because, you know, we expect shallowness when we accept this type of framework, the Islamic approach to dawah, the Islamic approach to science. It's like, you know, we shouldn't be so simple, and it's a
very
simple
not nuanced,
mindset.
is it?
What's that?
It's very unnuanced. It's like really just straight to it. It's A, B, or C. There's no like interchangeability between them all.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So I suppose I'll ask a question on my own behalf, because this is something that I kind of struggle with sometimes, and I think you might have the a good frame of reference to kind of give some insight on this. I oftentimes end up in debates with non-Muslims. And I don't mind these conversations. I quite enjoy the opportunity to have these discussions. However, there's always a point where for certain types of conversations, typically with atheists, where it comes down to insults and degradation of a core figure within the religion, whether it be Sahabas, whether it be the Prophet ﷺ, whether it be someone that we have a great love for, no matter what. in these moments, anger is very quick for me. I'll be completely honest with you. It's something that I struggle with. And so the only remedy I found really is to just say, look, I'm not having this conversation, and to walk away. What's a better approach for this? What's a way that I can have these conversations and avoid getting, your back up out of anger, but also being able to tackle these types of
Well, since it's happened before, you should probably analyze what the precursors are to those insults and end it there.
Oh yeah, good point. Yes. So what conversation am I having before it leads to someone then drawing to insults?
Or when you know it's about to get there, just end it there.
Yeah.
And so, look, we probably won't agree on this, but if you want to stay in touch, you can email me here, for example.
Yeah.
Or just end it.
This is good advice. It usually, just to acknowledge it, usually comes at a position where we're discussing morality. And then this is where, the conversation of objective versus subjective morality comes, right. And then the accusation of what is immoral, and then comes to insulting, particular people. So actually, there's probably a way, rather than finding a way to not get angry when people insult, there's a way to actually avoid putting people into a position where they have the opportunity to insult the Prophet ﷺ.
So, yeah. Or recognize it's going there and just end it.
Yeah. Be a bit preemptive with it. I like this.
Or you can have rules and just say these are the rules to our discussion. We won't insult, no foul language, for example. And then if they cross any of those lines, you could say, I would love to continue this conversation, but you violated one of the rules, and I'm just going to follow that and have to end it here.
This is one thing I really respect with intra-Muslim debates, is that you often see this framework established, right? We have a specific rule set. Only certain sources will accept, only certain methodologies will apply. As soon as someone exceeds that or steps outside of the boundary, it's an admittance in itself that, okay, you can't have this conversation on good faith, and you have to go outside of this. And so the conversation essentially is ended there. I think it's a real academic approach to conversations. I'm not sure how much you can kind of maintain it with these more,
just like I said, just having basic rules of respect, no foul language, no insults like that.
Yeah. Sheikh, we're nearing our time, so I do want to ask you one final question. Is there anything that's been on your mind of the past few days as we're heading towards the last 10 days of Ramadan, and inshallah we managed to increase our ibadah on Laylatul Qadr, whenever that might be? Is there anything that's been on your mind that you've been kind of thinking about that you think would be worthwhile for other people to hear or reflect on?
No, nothing too much. Just same old. Like I said, it's a good type of monotony, in Ramadan, to just be scheduled, to be regimented, and there's nothing new, really.
No, yeah. I've taken your advice, by the way, on this, which is when you mentioned it's not a marathon, it's a sprint.
Right.
This is something that we need to almost meet it like a soldier in battlefield, right? You're not trying to preserve this for as long as possible. You're trying to have the most effect as quickly as possible.
Right.
And it has a different impact, when you're trying to self-preserve all the time.
Right.
And obviously, I'm not saying I'm going into things heedlessly and hurting myself or causing harm to myself, but so sometimes caution hides, or how do I say, laziness hides under this cautionary approach. I don't want to overexert myself. I want to make sure I can maintain myself.
And there's virtue in overexerting yourself. Like, it's a good thing to overexert yourself. It's not bad.
Yeah, this is a good point. There's no growth without challenge, right? Yeah, everyone needs to face a challenge. You can't coast your way to proficiency in everything.
Right. You're supposed to sleep less, you eat less, but it's not, the eating less is not throughout the year. So, just get it out this month while you can. Because look, when you do these things and you're physically able to do so, and then you're not able to at a certain point, Allah writes those as good deeds for you, as if you did it, because you would have done it if you had the health and if you had the ability.
Which is a blessing in itself, let's be honest. Yeah. Inshallah, Allah allows us to reach an age where we benefit from situations such as that, because we never know. This might be Allah's Ramadan, as cliche as it is to say, but this is a reality we will have to face. Sheikh, barakallahu feek. I appreciate your time. Any last comments for anybody? By the way, I put in the description There's a link to Sheikh Danish's work that he does in Sheikh's clothing. I'll also put that in the comments for us when we finish the live stream. If anybody wants to reach out to him, obviously, there's contact details through the page. Is there anything going on within Sheikh's clothing at the moment that's worthwhile mentioning?
I mean, it's a continuous project, highlighting a lot of the manipulation, the way people will use religion to manipulate other people. And a lot of it's creating awareness and then helping people when they reach out to kind of undo the manipulation and teach correct understanding of deen and tasawwuf. And Sheikh Nuruddin, who's, Jazakallah khair, who's organized these conversations of ours here, he's made a really nice contribution recently, and inshallah we'll have more of him as well.
This is good. I think there's very much a space for people to talk about religious manipulation and religious trauma that certain communities go through. Oftentimes, I think you see communities unwilling to talk about it because it might shine a negative light on the religion, but it is our duty to talk about this and expose it, right? To hold ourselves accountable for this.
Exactly. And, we don't need to worry about people exploiting the scandal. Frankly, that's everywhere. But more importantly, what we need to worry about is not letting people be harmed and helping those who have been harmed. That's actually the duty, and we shouldn't worry about the other stuff. And if we want a good image, let's make it a good, community.
Sheikh, have you done any long form breakdowns of what religious manipulation and coercion looks like? Any sort of things that we can dive into?
Yeah, I've given a good amount of talks on this, in many places. Okay, I have one online from a few years back, but mainly it's not online. It's just been in person.
Yeah, if you would be open to having one online, I'd love to have that discussion.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
I think, a lot of people who come from a position of either leaving Islam or having a negative thought of Islam usually comes from religious trauma, right? Or not usually, but in a lot of cases. Yeah. And this is something that is, it is a duty of ours as Muslims to maintain. So, yeah, I'll try and book it in, inshallah. If you have any time coming up, we'll see.
Sounds good, inshallah.
Okay. Barakallahu feek. Everybody, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.